scour Facebook to find those. And Brandon, I'll just the weekly coaches show. I'm here with number 33, senior linebacker Noah Lovelady. I'd like to thank you guys for watching. We're here on the campus of Ouachita Christian School. We've moved locations. We're going to keep working on some things to make this as a viewable, a positive viewable experience as possible. I want to thank Noah. I want to thank you for taking time out of your day. I know you got class coming up and things like that. Well, you're a senior. You probably get to leave campus now. But I also want to thank Sonic of North Monroe for sponsoring our coaches show. Are we good? You want to start over? Okay, we're good. So maybe we can edit that out. But hey, we're here live, as you can see, and again, I want to thank Noah and Sonic of North Monroe, and I want to take some time each week to talk to some of our seniors. We have 15 seniors on this year's team, which is it's not just 15 seniors, it's seniors that have a lot of experience playing football for the Eagles in the past, have been to 3 state championship games, and one of those that have started all 4 years is Noah Lovelady. So again, Noah, I do want to ask you a few things. I want to get a behind the scenes look at what goes on each week with Ouachita Christian football, and I want to tell you that it's a privilege and an honor to have watched you play football for the past 3 years, and you know, it's something really cool that I get to do each week. I don't know if you go back and listen to the live streams, but David Gordy and I kind of play a game each week when there's a big play, usually in the fourth quarter, and it usually has a lot to do with the outcome of the game. But you know, there's a big tackle or something, and I'll say, guess who? And Gordy will say, let me guess, number 33, Noah Lovelady. Have you heard that? Have you heard us do that? Yeah, yes, we did that quite a bit. So you've compiled quite a career for the Eagles. You got interception returns for touchdowns, fumble returns for touchdowns, tons of tackles. You got a bunch of tackles for loss, some sacks here and there. So I want to ask you, what's your single most memorable play from the last, I guess, I don't know how many games you've played, but 4 years?
I would probably say the pick six from freshman year against Dennis Springs, because that's really the first time in a big game. You know, we were playing against our first 5A team in school history, and you know, that was just a big moment for me.
Yeah, absolutely, for the team too, because I remember that game, and going into the game playing a 5A school. I don't even know if we'd ever played a 5A school before that. We have since then, but going into that, not many people gave us a chance that game, right, because they were such a big school, and those are the types of plays that I'm talking about that happen. They tend to happen each game. So we talked about stats and accomplishments just now. Some of the things, you know, you had 18 tackles this past week, and we'll talk about that in just a minute. But those types of things just keep adding up. You're on pace to break a lot of records, more than we have time to mention here. But I know that's not why you play football. You are a team player, and I know that you know that those types of stats only are racked up if all 11 guys are doing what they're supposed to do. Yeah. So one cool thing about your career is, I mentioned it a second ago, you've played in 3 consecutive state championship games. Okay? So you've had a lot of big plays, a lot of big wins, a lot of big moments. So I asked about your favorite play, but what about a moment? It doesn't have to be a play, but what about just like a moment that you'll always remember from your career?
I think probably one of the biggest moments was last year against Glenbrook, whenever we had 2 goal line stands. You know, they're banging on the door, and we just stepped up and made plays when we needed to, and it ended up helping us in that last overtime.
Yeah, that was one of those wild games right there, man. I was losing my mind in the booth. That was, excuse me, that was an awesome moment, and you know what? I'm probably not going to forget that one either. So the next thing I want to ask you is, and this is kind of a tough one, okay? You know, you're obviously a coachable player, all right? But now put yourselves in the coach's shoes, and I'll ask Coach. Well, I want to ask Coach Fitchie about this today, but you know, last 2 years we've gone to New Orleans. The year before, the state championship wasn't in New Orleans, but the experience coming from those. Talk about how that gives you confidence going into your senior season, especially with some young players having to fill some big shoes.
I think it helps us, go into all the way because we've seen everything. We know what it's going to take, and so just having that in the back of your mind, you know what you have to do to get to that point again. And with all the young players, they've seen that, we've played in those games, freshmen, sophomore, and juniors, some of us. So they know that just because you're young, it doesn't mean you can contribute some way to the team.
Yeah, and you guys have some clout because you can say, hey, we've been here. We know what it takes. We have to do this year in and year out to make these runs. And, it's cool that you look at that and it looks like it's just been dominating. But, there are some games, but each season there were times when the whole season was kind of in balance, hanging in the air. That Glenbrook game that you mentioned, Calvary, a couple times. So that's really cool. So I mentioned last week, I got some stats here. You had 4 tackles for loss, 2 sacks, 1 forced fumble, and 18 total tackles. It's just another day at the office, right? No, that was a big game. Calling the game on the radio, it was kind of back and forth. But in the fourth quarter, honestly, it seemed like you just really led that defense and took over. I think I counted 4 tackles in a row at one point. I think David Gordy said 6. I don't know how many it was, but it was a lot. Big hits, critical stops, much needed turnovers. A player of your caliber is an asset to any team at any level. That's what I believe. So are you planning to play football next year?
Yes, sir. I plan to. Right now, I'm just looking at all my options, seeing what program fits best for me, and I'm going to make a decision.
Yes. So what does that entail when you talk about, players talk about recruiting? So what does that entail for you?
So for me, I want to look at a school. They have great weight program, and really for how aggressive their defense is, because I love blitzing. I will drop it in pass coverage every here and there, but my main thing is blitzing and getting towards the ball.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm looking for.
Yeah, I agree with that. Watching you go from sideline to sideline and getting after the quarterback, that's a great thing. Are there any schools that you're especially interested in right now?
Right now,
that you can share.
I'd say probably the number one option would be Tech. Coach Carter, I love him. We have a great relationship, and that's where I'm leaning towards.
All right, very cool. This is going to be my last question, and then we're going to go to a quick commercial. And this is one that I plan to ask Coach Fitzhugh in our coaches segment. But last year, so we got Mansfield this week at home. It's good to be home, I know that. But we play Mansfield at home. Last year's game against Mansfield was one that ended up coming down to the wire, almost the last play. We had the ball deep in our own territory, and we kept losing yards. But one thing I know, and maybe you can talk on this, is they run an offense that's similar to what Oak Grove did at certain times in last week's game, and they were successful in running that type of offense. Under center, 2 tight ends, just kind of running up the middle. What's been the approach at practice this week, and what is it going to take to win this Friday?
Our approach was, last year we kind of were on our heels for the first probably half, I would say. So they're still telling us stay hungry. Just because we won 2 big games, we still have to focus on this one because this is the most important. And just to do our jobs, really. Do your jobs, and we'll all make tackles.
Yeah, just do what you're supposed to do.
Right.
Well, I'm really excited about this Friday's game, Friday night, 7 o'clock here, Stephen Fitzhugh Field, Eagle Stadium. You don't want to miss it. It's going to be a physical game. A group of athletes from Mansfield, the Wolverines, are coming to town, and that's something that you guys don't want to miss. Noah, I want to thank you for coming on and answering those questions. You did a great job, and again, it's an honor to call your games week in and week out. So we'll take a quick commercial break, and then we'll be back with head coach Stephen Fitzhugh.
There comes a time in every dip's life when it's ready to leave the slow cooker, even buffalo chicken dip. So we put juicy chicken, buffalo sauce, and melty cheese in a portable crispy golden shell. Runaway dip, you're free now. Sonic $2.99 buffalo chicken dip bites.
Eagles, and
we're gaining on
yeah,
it.
and
Making some ground up.
Yeah, 7 out of the last 10. So it was a huge win on the road, loud, raucous atmosphere. They were ranked number 2 in 2A at the time. They've got a lot of returning players from a state championship team, and they pitched a shutout in the state championship last year also. So it's a big victory that you'd like to kind of soak in for a while, enjoy, celebrate, but you can't do that because you got the Wolverines coming to town.
We enjoyed it through the weekend. That was it.
That's right. We got the Wolverines coming to town this week. Coach, how do you turn the page after a game like that and begin preparation for a team like Mansfield?
I mean, it's one of those things each week, whether we win or lose. I get up on Saturday morning, grade the film from the night before a game, and then as soon as that's graded, it's like, okay, now we can put total focus on the next team, and we start working on Mansfield on Saturday. And again, you enjoy we celebrate in the locker room, enjoy the victory, and I was real proud of the way the guys battled. I mean, just the composure that they kept throughout the ball game. Our defense was on the field to start the game, 50 plays in the first half. Our offense only had 20 plays, and they were gassed at halftime, but the composure that they showed to continue to battle after, a third down interference call or roughing the punter call, when you get that stop, and then you got to just keep playing. And like I say, defense just continued to battle. Real proud of them. And then in the second half, our offense really started clicking, and they took control of the ball game. I think with the physicality that they finally started wearing on Oak Grove's defense, and we were able to control the football and the clock a lot more and keep our defense fresh, and they were able to get Oak Grove off the field. And so that was a big win. But, that's what we talked about this week. We've had 2 emotional victories in a row, and last year was very similar, and we came out that third week, and we struggled to beat a very good Mansfield team who's playing a killer schedule. I mean, again, they played Evangel last week and 5A Huntington the week before. They're playing a brutal schedule, but they're always one of the top track teams in the state. They have great speed there, and that's what we've laid a challenge to our guys is we've got to come out and execute and do things right.
Yeah, well, you mentioned a couple of things there that I do want to ask about. Well, and the first one was we go into the half up 14-7. Okay, 7 points came from a big punt return by Tate there, which was huge, especially when you break down the stats from the first half. And one of those major stats in the first half and in the game was the penalties. I mean, good gracious, we had either 13 or 14 penalties, and Oak Grove had 2 penalties. So you talk about adversity. Some of them, were questionable at best, and I even saw you on the sideline with your hat and your headset, either in your hand or somewhere else. But is that something that you guys at practice this week that you addressed? Because some of those were, the illegal procedure, the false starts, the things like that, things that you can control and that you can work on. Is that something that y'all have addressed this week at practice?
Well, I mean, we addressed it during the game. I mean, don't know if we were a little late. Stacy's new at center and has done a great job. But sometimes there may be getting a check or something. Our snap may be a little bit off, but there really as many penalties as there were not. I think we had 3 pre-snap penalties, and so there were not a lot of foolish penalties. I mean, there were some holding calls that were made that you go, if you're going to call that one, you need to call this other one.
Zach's big run down the sideline.
And, I mean, I thought Ryder had a great block on that. But, again, those are things that, you don't get to go back and redo right there. And again, just proud of the way our guys didn't let it get to them. They continued to battle, continued to respond. But we got a good disciplined group of kids. And like I say, they play hard. And so – again, we just try to get better each and every week.
Yeah, a lot of resilience there because that was, that did set us back on some drives and things like that. And we'll get into that a little bit more in just a minute. But one thing I do want to ask is the local news has been a lot about head coaches in football this past week. And one thing about you, this is your 26th year as head, is that right? 26th year. as head coach, and I can see it from my point of view, which, I teach here and I coach here, but not on the football staff, and I call the games. But, seeing the support that you get from administration, the support that you get from your assistant coaches, the tenure that you have with your assistant coaches. I mean, how much does that contribute to the success of a program, not just a season, but a program, over several years?
Well, that's what it takes. Again, we've been blessed here with that consistency. That again, people have been here. I mean, our administration has been here for, Coach Harper's been here for 40 plus years, and the Stokes been here for over 30, and and our coaching staff. I mean, Tim Moser's been here for 25 years. Bentley's been here for 18. Sonny Vadrine, between his coaching and his radio, his investment here, he's been here 25 plus years. Drew Vadrine played for me, and then the only time Drew and I have not been together in the last 30 years were his 4 years of college. And so he's been coaching for close to 20 years. And Robbie DeVinny, who played ball here and that I was able to coach, he's OCS through and through. He played here. Has been coaching now for back close to 10 years. And so that continuity is huge. And then you go add in the junior high staff, that they've all been here for 15 plus years. There's a lot of continuity there, and everybody knows what to expect, what to do, and again, it runs smoothly. Whereas, when coaches are having, schools are hiring a new coach every couple of years, and you're having to retrain new coaches and this and that, it takes a while to build a culture. And like I said, we've been blessed to have great continuity here. And a culture where our kids, they buy in and they're willing to work hard. They have a love for each other, and so it's a blessing to have that continuity for sure.
I saw a picture on Facebook yesterday of Bobby Stokes with Stacy Shaw, who was in the 3rd or 4th grade, and Ben Duvall, who was in the 4th grade at the time. So you mentioned that continuity, and it made me think about that picture that popped up yesterday. And now those two kids are outstanding football players and great contributors to our team.
Yeah, and along with that, our in the Dome last year, of our 11 starters on offense, 9 of them were here in kindergarten or 1st grade, and the other 2 came as 5th graders.
Yep.
And so they grow up. Again, they're in this culture. They grow up dreaming about it, thinking about it, and again, they have a great love for each other, and that's one thing. Somebody asked me the other day, what's one of the secrets to our success? And I say it's that love that the guys have for each other, that they're grown up together all their life.
Yeah, something that's hard to recreate. You can't just transplant that and move to another place and have that immediate success like a lot of teams are trying these days. All right, so I do have another question about last week's game against Oak Grove. Fair or not, a lot of attention goes to the quarterback position. Sophomore Luke Vadrine, I think that he had a much better game in week 2 against Oak Grove than he did in week 1 against Dallas Christian. Not that he played bad, but I saw a couple things this week that kind of showed him grow up just from week to week. One thing I saw, Coach, was Luke ran the ball. He ran the ball against Dallas Christian, but last week he ran the ball and he was making cuts, which kind of shows that he's seeing more of the field. It's slowing down a little bit for him. What kind of growth have you seen in Luke, and what else is needed for him to continue to develop?
Well, he is. I thought he played a lot better game last week as well. Again, it was a week of confidence. I mean, again, Dallas Christian was a great defense, and then this last week going against Oak Grove, I thought that he, one thing I told him after the game that I was really proud of, I thought he took a lot more shots from Oak Grove, but he jumped up right away. Like, that didn't hurt me. But I know he was sore and took some hits, but he jumped up, gave the ball to the ref, went back to the huddle, and was getting ready for the next play. And so just that toughness right there that I think that showed a lot. And again, I think he had 75, 80 yards rushing himself last week. And again, it's just every week I feel like he's going to get better and better just with the confidence and the experience. He's a sophomore, and it's different playing on varsity than JV. And so every week he's going to get a little bit more comfortable and be natural and feel at ease. And And the thing is that he has done a good job of is just leading our offense. He does not have to make the huge plays. He just, again, that quarterback position, that quarterback needs to just execute, not make plays that are costly. And I think that's one thing that he's done a good job of, is taking care of the football, because, whether it's elementary, junior high, high school, college, pro, there's one stat you can look at each week, and that's which team had the fewest turnovers. And usually whoever has the fewest turnovers, 90% of the time they're going to win, regardless of what level it is. And, week one, our defense had 3 takeaways, and we only had 1 giveaway. And then this past week, 3 takeaways with no turnovers. And so, again, that's the biggest thing, I think, for him and the rest of our offense, is just continue to take care of the football and eliminate any costly turnovers, so that again, we can win that turnover war. So I think that's been huge, and will continue to be each and every week.
Well, I agree with that 100%. Against Dallas Christian, we hadn't seen Luke a whole lot. I say we, from our perspective, and he held on to the football. He took some licks that week, but last week, I know he took a couple of shots, but again, held on to the football. I think he had 11 carries or so, but just hold on to the football, protect the football, and allow your offense to move the chains, and your defense to, especially with the defense that we got. They played lights out last week, and we're almost out of time. But I did have a question about turnovers, but you addressed that. The one thing I do want to talk about last week's game was a tale of two halves. I got some numbers here. The first half we had 113 total yards, along with 86 penalty yards. 7.5 minutes of possession, where Oak Grove had 16.5 minutes of possession, 163 yards, which wasn't a huge difference, but only 1 penalty for 5 yards. We go into the break with a 14-7 lead. I mentioned the punt return. That was the difference there. Our offense scored the other touchdown. The second half was, but apart from the penalties, it was the exact opposite. OCS outgained Oak Grove 226-74. Time of possession 16 minutes to 8 minutes. 5 penalties for 60 yards compared to their 1 for 6 yards. It was a different atmosphere in the stadium, not just on the field, but in the stands and everything else. The momentum shifted, and you could almost, it was tangible. You could feel it. Is that the sense that you guys had on the sideline too, that we would be able to dominate like that in the second half?
Well, we did, and again, I feel like our offensive line, those guys really started wearing on Oak Grove's defense. And that's the thing, our guys, I was very proud of how their conditioning showed last week. Reed Messenger and Ryder and Ben, it's a little easier sometimes on those smaller guys like Hudnall, but those big linemen, it gets to be tough. But I thought they battled through great, and they did eventually. Again, I think that they were able to wear Oak Grove down, and again, you can see the time of possession that made a difference. And then, again, successfully defense getting off the field finally, where we get a stop and let the offense have the ball, and they had great ground control and stuff like that.
Yeah, it was a fantastic game plan. All of it was great, a huge win. So looking forward to this Friday. From a talent standpoint, I think Oak Grove exceeds Mansfield. But from an athletic standpoint, I don't know if that's the case. Mansfield is a team that's full of athletes. You mentioned their prowess in track and field. I think they're athletically, they stack up with any team that we have on our schedule. So what do you want to see from your team this week?
Well, again, offensively, take care of the football, and that's the number one goal every week for our offense. Take care of the football. Offensive line is going to need to communicate, make good precision passing. Mansfield's going to run a lot of man defense, just like we have seen these past several weeks, and so that's one thing that helps our continuity with our offense is we're seeing a lot of the same thing. And so again, we got to take care of the football on offense, stay with blocks, and then defensively. One thing I think has been huge the past couple of weeks that's going to be big again this week is don't give up the big play. We had 20 missed tackles against Dallas Christian. This past week we improved a lot. We only had 8 missed tackles, and several of those we had somebody right there following up that we may have missed it, but we slowed them down, and somebody's right there to secure the tackle. But defensively, we got to continue to create turnovers, and then real big is do not give up the big play. And Mansfield's going to run an offense like you hadn't seen before. They're going to put 4 linemen on one side, 3 on the other, a lot of unbalanced. some wing stuff, and do a lot of different things to try to just get one gap that they can hit and bust it down the seam. And so our defense is going to have to do a great job communicating, make sure we're lined up right, and then again just securing the tackle.
Yeah, last year they eventually hit that big play with the fullback up the middle, but other than that, they were content with running the ball and putting pressure, and were able to gain some ground there in the second half. Like you said, if you leave one gap and they hit it just right, it can be a big play. So I appreciate that, and I want to thank you for your time. I think we're about out of time, but I want to thank you for coming on again. It's something I look forward to each week, talking about football. I do it every day in my leisure time. So to be able to do it for the school and to let the people watching kind of get this inside look at what's going on with your program here, I think it's a great thing. I also want to thank Noah Lovelady for coming on. Fantastic player, and I know many of the people who are watching this have the opportunity to and the pleasure to watch him play week in and week out. I look forward to Friday's matchup, 7 o'clock, Stephen Fitzhugh Field at Eagle Stadium. We'll take on the Wolverines from Mansfield. We'll have the tailgate show starting at 6:30 p.m. To tune into all that, just go to ocs.org/live stream. You can click those, and we'll have those up and going for all of you. Thanks to Sonic Drive-In. Thanks again to Sonic Drive-In, North Monroe location. Hope you have a great week, and I hope to see you Friday when our OCS Eagles look to start the season 3-0. Thanks for tuning in.